Hello, welcome to Image Bearers. My name is Otoma Edje. I'm very excited to have an international program today. We're connected with some friends in Guatemala to learn about the Naomi ministry. For those not aware, this is Image Bearers. This is season 3, episode 61. Let's go ahead and get started. This episode is the first of many that I'm starting a new program called Inspired, because we're inspired by the lives of many, many disciples, and we have some great disciples with us today. So if you can, just as we start out, if you could maybe introduce yourself and where you're from. We'll start with you, Chris.
My name is Chris Coles. Along with my wife, I live just outside of Baltimore in Maryland.
My name is Mark Felsher, and I live just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Hi, my name is Manuel Sasso, and I was born in Guatemala City. ¿Nombre y dónde nació?
Rosa Odilia Ibarra Aguirre del Procesamiento Los Ángeles, Puerto San José, Escuintla, Guatemala.
She said, hi, I was born in Puerto de San Jose in Guatemala City, and her name is Rosa Ibarra.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for joining the program, everyone. All right. So Chris and Mark, can you please share about the Naomi ministry, what it is and how you got involved in the ministry in Guatemala? So Mark, if you can maybe start out.
Well, in 2005, I was invited by a sister to come to Guatemala City to work on a school. It was in a squatter community, and the building was in pretty bad shape. And I'm a contractor. God had primed me for Guatemala years before, but that's another story. And so as soon as she said, would you come to Guatemala and help? I immediately knew this was from God. I didn't know where it was going to go, but I accepted. So for the first, I want to say 5 years, I came with her with a group, and we worked on the school, upgrading the roof, the electrical, walls, things like that. School typically enrolled about 220 kids each year. But about 9 years ago, now that was 2005. So about 8 or 9 years ago, this woman here changed everything. I was given some money, and when I came to Guatemala, I was told with this money to do something good. It was $40. And with that, I asked the principal of the school, is there a situation where $40 will make a difference? And she directed me to Rosita and her family. Now, we had seen each other before, but we had never spoken, never made eye contact. And we went to her house because her husband had just died the month before from a stroke. And in these kind of conditions, Rosita was going to be a housewife the rest of her life. And that meant washing clothes by hand, grinding corn to make tortillas. She was never going to be the breadwinner of the family. Now the breadwinner is dead, and she's just in a terrible situation. So we went to see her, and the things that happened in the next few minutes, I will never forget. But I was able to experience the grief that she was going through very, very deeply. It's now been about 9 years since that first meeting, and I have never missed a day thinking about that and her family. So I began to realize that I was in working on the school. I saw a lot of the poverty, but I wasn't really involved in the lives of the people. And when I met Rosita, that changed. And I realized there's a whole nother dimension to helping the poor that I knew nothing about. And then the following year, or maybe a couple of years, I kept coming back, I'll say that. And I don't know how much we'll get into the crisis that she was in, but it involved not only the death of her husband, but also a landslide that destroyed half her house and had to be rebuilt. And when I came to rebuild that, that's when I met Manuel. A couple years later, trying to think where I was going with this. I got in a situation where I had two reasons to be in Guatemala about a month apart, and I didn't know whether to make two trips or select one or make one trip and stay the whole time. Eventually settled on staying the whole time, and I thought, what am I going to do with the extra time? And that's when God gave me the idea, well, why don't each week you have one or two American disciples come and stay with middle-class Guatemalans and then go visit the poor during the day and get to know their situations and what their specific needs are, and also just to build friendships. And so that's really how that started. It was not the Guatemala Naomi ministry at that time. It was just, we're going to do what we can. It wasn't really till Chris got involved that he's taken it to another level of explaining to other people what we're doing. So I'm here in Guatemala right now. I'll be here until December the 4th. I have 6 American disciples coming for 3 different weeks, and we will do exactly what I just explained. We will stay here in Manuel's house, which is sort of middle class, and then go visit the poor and see what's up with them.
That's so awesome.
So Chris, your turn.
That was pretty concise, Mark. Congratulations. So Mark and I have a relationship that goes way back and sort of hops, skips, and jumps around. And we're both on Facebook pretty often. And several years ago, before I came to Guatemala, in fact, I really didn't pay much attention when he mentioned Guatemala. It just sort of went over my head. So, but I started looking at things to do as I approached empty nesterhood and approached several years away, retirement. My wife was a nurse. Hey, maybe we can go to Cambodia, like some friends have, or go to Bolivia. So I was sharing some things, looking up various statistics and posting them on Facebook. So I got the famous email from Mr. Felcher, El Gringo, as he's called, in spring of 2014. He said, hey, I see that you're interested in going to Bolivia next year. Maybe this year, if you got a passport, you can come with us to Guatemala and see what we do, see the culture. And then if you want to go to Bolivia next year, you can do that. I said, okay. So I thought, well, maybe this is from the Lord. So I don't think I'll do a whole bunch of research on Guatemala. Besides, it might scare me off. As long as Mark says it's a great place, because my initial email said, wait a minute, I thought Guatemala was a malaria-infested, drug lord-run dictatorship full of volcanoes. He said, no, it's a land of great beauty. And Mark's an outdoorsman, if you haven't caught that yet already. That's one way we connect. So I said, okay, if you say so. So I got my passport. My wife said, okay, you go first. So I went down and got driven around by Manuel's little 93 Toyota with 400,000 miles, much more by today, I'm sure. And so during the conversation, as we crisscrossed the city of 4 to 5 million, which was very interesting. I won't go into all that. Manuel mentioned, well, some people that come here decide to adopt a widow or a family or something. So I thought about that. And toward the end of the week, I said, Manuel, how obviously this car needs a lot of help. It's got cracked windshield, bad brakes, bad shocks, bad tires, bad everything, bad smells. What would it cost for me to support this car on a monthly basis? He said, I will let you know. So anyway, make a long story short, I decided to support repairs to the Azul Tortuga, as it became known. And then, so all was fine. And not knowing the culture or the language and maybe worried about standing out in the crowd, I thought this was a safe investment for me, my first time. Well, God had to step in year 2, because in 2015, we came down and Mark said, hey, we've got a project. There's a house that we've heard that needs some substantial repairs. let's go take a look and see what we can do. And this time my wife was with me. So we went, and the house was beyond description. We've got pictures. When we show them the people, they can't believe, wait a minute, what am I looking at here? This is actually a piece of wood that I salvaged from the demolition. So we ended up tearing the house down in a couple days. But in the afternoon of tearing it down, as I recall, we heard that the grandfather, Carlos, around age 75, a disciple, was sick and he needed to go to the hospital. And Manuel ran down and put him in his Azul Tortuga and took off to the hospital with what appeared to be a potential heart attack. So we went back to work and prayed, and were not in a good frame of mind. And that night about 11, we heard that indeed he had passed away. So the next couple of days were filled with memorials and funeral, as only Guatemala can have, eye openers, not on the tourist brochure. And then we had to leave because our week was up. But other volunteers were coming down to put the house together, made out of steel. Anyway, so that was accomplished in a few weeks. And then over the next few months, I was querying Manuel, hey, what else does this family need? And we ended up supporting the oldest granddaughter to go back to school. She dropped out of 8th grade to take care of grandfather Carlos having a stroke. We supported her for 4 years. And during that 4 years, every time we came to make a visit, we made sure we stopped by to see their household, which was 5, plus boyfriend made 6. And we would go out to eat. They all come to church, and we would get to know each other through a translator. Sometimes Manuel, sometimes a single sister there that could translate for us. And as we got to know each other, increased comfort level, get to know needs. We paid for medication. We paid for different needs that they had, because the mom was 40, in which part-time, low-wage work is all she could afford. So we really got deeply involved with the family, and I could go on and on about this family and how we're involved. We just don't have time right now. But after about 3 years or so, we really didn't know this family very well, especially with culture and language difference. But I finally had a trust level with them and Manuel and everybody, that I told the family, at lunch, I go one by one from the youngest to the oldest and back and forth and ask questions and things. I finally said to the mom, I said, Amy, I want you to know that we have your backs. Whatever happens, whatever you need, we're here for you. If somebody would have told me I was doing that 4 years earlier, I would have said, oh, I don't think so. And that just deepened the relationship. And we've just shared a lot more, and they're all on Facebook, and we message each other. The kids send me artwork. They send me their grades. We're like family. They're my Guatemalan family. And that was the start of something big, because I just made a list for my wife, who doesn't know everybody over the years of who I have helped or who I support regularly. And the list is up to about 14. So my family has grown quite a bit in Guatemala, including little babies and granddaughters now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, I just, listening to you sharing, yourself and Mark, I just love your hearts, to really just, connect with people, not just to put money in the plate or whatever. And I think it calls all of us higher, in our spiritual walk, which is what Jesus did. He was there in the cities. He got to know people. He knew the names. He touched people, spat, all these things to really just connect in a great way. So Manuel and Rosita, can you share about the Naomi ministry? First of all, why is it called the Naomi ministry? And also, how has it impacted you and also the people in Guatemala?
With Naomi Ministry, it's a big challenge for me. It's because, as Mark said at the beginning, had no name, but God, I think, put in Chris' heart to be in charge of many situations related with Naomi Ministry. But the thing that impressed me most is how God gave us the chance to put all the things together. For instance, at the beginning, I met Mark Felcher. It's a friend of mine was busy and told me, can you please help me with the gringo for translation into Spanish? Because he will be lost in the railroad track. And I say, yes, okay, I can do that. I can do that for you. But for me, it was really, I don't know how to explain this, but usually Americans, or we gringos that we call them, they are always traveling, taking pictures, fancy restaurants, and nice Pullman tour or buses or fancy hotels. But this gringo that I met was working for a poor family, for instance, Rosita's family. And I was in shock because I was, wow, he's doing that? We usually work for gringos, but they are working for us. And I say, this is really interesting. Something is cooking here. I know we are spiritual brothers, and God was teaching me a lesson because I saw him using the hammer, painting, he was sweating, and I was, wow, I should be doing that. And really challenged my life. I say, wow, but God put all the things together because I thought I want to continue doing this, not only one day. I mean, I was learning English to go to the US, work there and have money, but God showed me that that was not his purpose. He showed me that I have to be here. And I thought, why I am learning English if I am living in Guatemala? But God showed me why I am here. He changed completely my life 18 years ago. And talking about Naomi Ministry, I thought, wow, there are many things to do here, helping elderly people, people that need medicine, Naomi's that wants to go to the doctor, and many people is hungry because COVID now. It's like the battlefield for a disciple. So I thought I'm in the right place because now we understand each other. Now, for a long time, I understand when Chris and Mark and all of them are thinking something, we are in the same channel because the Spirit is telling us what do we have to do. It doesn't matter the difference of languages. So for now, I thought, what is gonna happen when the gringos go back home? Who will be doing this? I think we have like a 911 number for Naomi's. We are ready. We are usually making phone calls to see if everything is okay. If they say I'm sick, I need to go to the doctor, I immediately call Mark Felcher, Sandy, Chris, and all of them are like in the same channel looking for help. And we have to drive the Azule Tortuga, as Chris says, is always ready for any emergency. It doesn't matter what time it is. So sometimes one of the things that I love the most is if there is an emergency, it's an emergency. If we have to take someone to the hospital, we do it right away. And after that, we are making phone calls to see if they need more medicine, how the things are doing. But in Naomi Ministry, there are more than 80 Naomis. And you know, they need reading glasses, they are sick, they need vitamins. For instance, today, with Mark, we went to Salome and Francisca house, and we realized that they need reading glasses because otherwise they are not gonna read their Bibles. So Salome she learned how to read, but Francisca doesn't. So Salome is reading the Bible for Francisca, and all of them got new reading glasses, so there's no problem with that. And with Rosita, I'm impressed because this the first day that I met her was because Mark was fixing her house. So the relationship, the friendship of spiritual brothers start right there. So that was years ago. So as Rosita, we got more Naomis in the same situation. I think all the needs are growing, but this is the way we can fight against the needs of our brothers in church. Sometimes it's Sunday, Saturday, holiday, it doesn't matter.
And very briefly, the Naomi ministry was a part of the church here when I first came. And it's named after the Naomi in the Bible who went away full and came back empty. And so these are women in the church. They have to be over 50 years old, and they have to have an unsupported situation at home. In Rosita's case, her husband had died, but if a husband's an alcoholic or if he's left or something like that. So there's 80 women, or there were at the time, 80 women in the church here who fit that description. And they are the ones that we focused on most. This is a more or less patriarchal culture here. And once a woman is over about 40 years old, if she doesn't have a good situation at home, she's probably not going to for the rest of her life. And in Rosita's case, she was taking care of her family, that's herself and 4 kids, on $8 a week when we first met her. And she had a debt, and then she had a landslide that destroyed half her house. So that's the kinds of things that we deal with. And it's gotten pretty big. I think Manuel, through COVID, has been consistently feeding about 150 people just from our small group of volunteers.
Wow, that's awesome. Oh, before Rosita says, I'm sorry. So how big is the church in Guatemala?
That's a good question with COVID. Before COVID, it was about 800. So at least 10% of the church.
10% of the church are in the Naomi ministry as far as widows and in the categorization you stated. Okay. Yeah.
And we're not confining ourselves just to those in the Naomi ministry. That's kind of how we got our foot in the door, but it often leads to other situations.
Okay, thank you.
In Naomi ministry, she is feeling okay because she has the time to share with them.
Yeah, be sure she understands this is talking about us gringos, Naomi ministry, not the Naomi ministry in the church.
Okay. Sí, ¿te puede explicar en qué beneficio le ha tenido espiritualmente estar unida al ministerio con Mark y Chris?
Qué buen nombre.
Con sus necesidades que ha tenido, ¿cómo le ha sido de beneficio?
A pesar de las necesidades, he estado bien, ¿verdad? Porque más que me ha ayudado bastante.
She say, I got many needs and I am 100% that God is using Mark to give her a hand.
Nos ha apoyado bastante en nuestra enfermedad.
Even when all of us, even my daughters, we are sick, they are taking care of us with medicine and many needs.
Y que Dios es el que ha hecho un milagro. Dios es el que nos puso ese ángel en el camino.
She said God is making miracle because he put this angel on earth for them.
Yo estoy agradecida con Dios y con ellos.
I am grateful with God and with them.
Y Dios que los bendiga a ellos mucha bendición.
And God give them a lot of blessings to all of them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gracias.
So I guess to the three of you guys, I guess anyone may want to ask this question, but what has been some of the most memorable moments? Maybe you can just share one or two maybe in serving in the Naomi ministry.
I guess I'll start. Sharing one or two is really difficult, and I'm not going to be able to do that, but it's been things like recently there was a widow, an older woman who broke her femur, and she went to the hospital, and the hospital sent her home to die, basically. They said, there's nothing we can do. and you just need to go home and we'll call you. And that's a death sentence. They told her not to stay in the hospital because there's too much COVID there. Well, between us and Manuel and another brother in the church, we managed to get in contact with the top orthopedic surgeon in Guatemala, and he replaced the ball on her femur for cost, which for us was $2,500. And now she was lame, now she's walking again. That's just one, but that's not anywhere near the top of my list. Most of mine are connected with Rosita, but there's a lot more. But since she's here, I guess I'll focus on those. So, Emma, can you stand up?
¿Podrías pararte, por favor? Venite acá.
Here we can see. So this is
La
Rosita's daughter, Emma, and then Mirna.
Mirna.
This is
Quítate la
Mirna.
máscara.
So after I spent some time at Rosita's house and rebuilt it, I invited her to come to church. A few months later, we got her in a Bible study and she was baptized. That is by far one of the greatest highlights. It started off, she wasn't a disciple, but because of helping her the way we did, the way God lined it up, she's now a disciple. These two girls were pretty young when I first met them. And there's something called a quinceañera. When a girl turns 15, in this culture, she's no longer a girl, she's considered a woman. So this is a huge deal. Many of the quinceañeras are bigger than weddings. Enma was the first to turn 15, and they asked me to be the dad in the quinceañera. That's a tremendous honor. Same thing with Mirna a couple of years later. So they are like, I call them my extra daughters, and I'm very proud of them. Emma is a good student, but she was going to have to quit after 6th grade because there was no way that anybody in her family was ever going to graduate high school. So we supported her. She studied hard, and I got to be the dad in her graduation. She is the first member of her entire clan to ever graduate from high school. So you can just kind of imagine, what that does. And I got to be there. So thank you. So that's just a few, but I hope you can sense the connection. That doesn't happen by putting money in a plate. It doesn't happen by fixing a roof on a school. That only happens when you really get involved on a personal level. And I know Chris has had the exact same experiences, and so has Manuel. And it's more than just this one family. Over the course of the time that I've been coming here, I believe I have brought about 60 Americans to come and stay for a week. And at least half, maybe 3/4 of them have stayed in touch with people they met while they were here. And they continue to provide for the needs. And in exchange, I do a lot of dangerous stuff. I have not gotten injured, and I know why. It's because people like Rosita are praying for me and sending angels to take care of me. And so overall, I benefit more than I give. And I'm absolutely convinced of that.
That's awesome. No, yeah, we're Zooming it, but I can definitely sense your heart and just your love for the people and just the ministry in general. So thank you. Manuel?
Yeah, believe me, wow, I can't explain in a few minutes the whole thing that I am being through, but wow, from small things, and that means a lot. For instance, at sitting in church building, and there is a Naomi, I think she is 85 years old. I know she has nothing, but before the service, she was knocking, touching my back. When I turn around, she say, "Manuel, this is for you. 3 apples in a bag." I know those 3 apples could be how she can be fed for 1 or 2 days, but that really touched my heart, that people that has nothing now are sharing the only thing they have. So believe me, many hard situations with Mark. We sometimes when we visit someone that is gonna die, and I have to translate the conversation, believe me, that broke my heart. Sometimes I have to stop because the words are not coming out from my mouth, and it's time to cry. Sometimes we have to cry. Sometimes we have to laugh. Sometimes we have to sweat. Sometimes we have to share. Even when you visit someone here and you give them a hug, they start crying because it's hard when someone take care of someone, even just forgive them a hug or ask them, how do they feel today? It's funny, but wow, I have a big list. I think it will take me hours. God give me the opportunity to do this, but I know we are like a team from the US, Guatemala, and even my house is, everybody is welcome. You don't have to go to a hotel here because we feel the same love. When we are having breakfast, lunch, or dinner, it's time to share their own experiences. So it's like a big family, bro. It's like a big family. And I think God put in every one of the hearts of my brothers from everywhere the same feeling, love. And the thing is not only by words, it's by acts. While they are learning from the Bible, they put it into practice. I think many countries got a lot of poor people, but this is the right place to share with a lot of people in need. Wealthy here is far away, but thank God, because if we now we know the word of God, wow, now we understand what are we doing here and what is the purpose in our lives.
Yeah, right now I'm going through a book. It's called The Patient Ferments of the Early Church. This book right here, it's probably not going to show up too well because of the Zoom filter. But anyway, it's just an awesome book about how for the first 300 years of the church, they really were about living out the scriptures. And I feel like you guys are just a culmination of my reading, just I'm seeing that in you guys, really just living it out, you know what I mean? So it's just very, very inspiring. Chris, you'd like to share a few words briefly?
Yeah, yes, in a little bit different direction that to me personally, and we all talk about this, about the unseen hand of God, about how God orchestrates and puts together people who have a dream of doing this or doing that or idea, and then God blesses it, and all of a sudden there's something awesome that happens. So like 3 or 4 years ago, I had mentioned to that we were talking. I said, well, we feed Naomi's and other people. We're helping go to school. But especially the young ladies seem to be more college bound potentially than the young men. Their grades are not that great, like C's or something. What can we do for the young men? And so Manuel, so then I left, and that's all I heard of until like 6 months later. Manuel says, "Hey, my brother-in-law Gerardo is a mechanic, and he's finally worked his way up where he can have his own shop." And I said, well, that's great. That's awesome. And then he said, and on Saturday morning, he wants to have a training class for young men who want to learn to be mechanics. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So a couple of the first guys we thought of were two of Carlos's grandsons who were in high school. And they loved it. And Debbie's boyfriend also was there. So Manuel and Gerardo were taking pictures of the class, and which soon expanded to 6 and then 12. And there's my three mighty warriors were there, really getting involved and intent and greasy and crawling under cars and laughing and joking and having a Bible lesson and prayer led by Gerardo and Manuel every Saturday. And then after a few months, Manuel says, "Hey, Mr. Gringo, we have a problem." "What's that?" With the mechanic school. They're learning, but they only have one set of tools to share. And some of them want to do work for their friends and family. I said, "Yeah, so they need tools." "Oh, duh, yeah, these are from poor families. They don't have all complete socket sets. Like, you can't go in my garage and find all this stuff. What are we gonna do?" I said, "Gee, I don't know. How much do we, that's my eternal question to Manuel. How much do we need?" So we did some listing, and well, about $225 per student would be great. Then they can have their own. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of moolah. Where am I going to get that? So I said, we've got some great pictures and a great story here. Let me put this on a Facebook fundraiser. The first time I've ever done that before. And let me ask for like $1,000 or something. And with these great pictures of these guys crawling under cars and stuff. And sure enough, we busted the $1,000 in like 2 weeks. So we sent that money to Manuel. They got some tools. And then we got pictures on Facebook of the students getting their tool sets. There was big smiles. There were tears. I said, "Manuel, why does that guy look sad?" "It's because he's been crying for 5 minutes. He said, "Nobody ever gave me anything like this in my whole life." And to us, it was so easy in the US. It was just like going to Home Depot and buying some sets of tools. So every couple months, we'd have another Facebook fundraiser. And through God orchestrating some other connections I won't go into right now, I've got some people that I have never even met. Some are disciples, some are just believers around the country that when I have a Facebook fundraiser, they're there with 150, 200, $300. And they've since followed every single post that we put on Guatemala Naomi Ministry. Some of them have even started following your group. And while I'm on that, one of my two reasons for starting Guatemala Naomi Ministry Facebook page was so we could post and educate our friends and family in the US, but also the middle-class Guatemalans, which Mark can share about that even more, because a lot of middle-class Guatemalans that have just like, the college degrees, they got cars, they got microwaves, they are shielded by their parents often from what really goes on among the many poor. And so we also, I had a lot of the people in the church there as Facebook friends. And so I invited them to like the page. So, but in addition to that, our friend, Debbie, who is now like 25 years old, married, has a baby. Just a few years ago, she started liking everything that we posted on Guatemala Naomi Ministry. And after about a year went by, and she started liking everything on my personal Facebook page. And she's liked stuff on things we post on yours also, so we get double likes. So about a year ago, I have to translate because we don't speak each other's language. I said, "Debbie, do you like read everything that you like, or do you just like it because you're my friend?" She said, "No, if I can translate it, I read everything, and as you know, if you look, it's full of scriptures and stories and pictures. So to me, I don't know where this is going to lead with Debbie and her family and other people, but that's a step toward realizing the dream that Mark was sharing about Rosita's daughters."
No, this is so amazing, so amazing. And the thing I love about what you guys have done, it seems like Mark kind of had the vision initially, and then it seems like, from there, Chris, you got involved a little bit more with the organization to a degree, and then you kind of all work together, and Manuel helped with some of the boots on the ground and understanding some of the specifics. And you all just have incredible hearts. So, thank you for your service. Can you share very briefly, Chris, just Job 29:13, what it generally says and why it's important for the Naomi ministry?
Sure, it's one of the easiest scriptures to memorize because it's very short. So in chapter 29, Job is reflecting back on the days gone by and how when he would go to the marketplace, when he'd go to the city gates, the young men would step back and the old men, their mouths would open and they would just treat him with the utmost. I mean, if you read it, reread it, it's like, wow, what is so awesome about this guy? Was it his big estate? Was his awesome family? Was it all his holdings? What was it that was so great about this guy to elicit this kind of response? So he goes on to share the reason why they reacted like that. And just a small part of that, just one scripture in verse 13 says, I made the heart of the widow sing. Now, I'm sure a lot of people that read Job have read over that. I did. And Mark brought this up to me, which is often the case. Mark brings things up and asks questions. And then I cogitate on it. And then I say, what about this? And then I start going off on it. So when you think about it, what does it take, no matter what country, but especially a country like Guatemala, what does it take to make the heart of a widow sing? We have tried very hard, and God has allowed a lot of things to happen to make that true. We have pictures to document the trips and the hugs and the tears and the "we have your back," because it's not just Rosita. It's there's several since Rosita that have become widows that it's just going to bring more tears and laughter if Mark shares about those too. So that's what it means to me.
Okay, thank you. So as we wrap it up here, how can people find more about your ministry, and how can they also donate?
It's probably going to be a question for Chris. He's done much more of that. I tend to focus much more on just get it done. And I haven't tried to expand the group. I'm not interested. In fact, I had to change my whole goal here a number of years ago. When I first came, I thought I'm going to make an impact on poverty. I've given that up. That's not possible. But what I can do is make sure that people in need know that they are loved by me in very practical and sacrificial ways. That I can do. And so that's what I've been doing. It's what I've been focused on. I have a very small group of people that have been very supportive of that along the way. And I need to throw in a plug for my wife. Without her, I could not do this. I'm here without her because we have another situation at home. We're taking care of a 13-year-old boy, and she needs to stay home and take care of him. He's not ours, but he needs a mom and dad. So without her, this would not happen. Same thing with Manuel. Without his wife, he would not be able to do what he's doing. So it's really been a very tight collaborative effort. Chris is the one who's kind of brought it out into the open. And I will say this about that. That's a struggle for us because Jesus said, when you help the poor, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. So we're supposed to be doing this in secret. At the same time, if we don't let Americans know what the situations are and what they can do about it, then they don't get involved. So it's a tightrope trying to walk between the two. And I think Chris has done an excellent job. I've resolved that I'm going to have enough secret things that even if everyone that gets exposed, God says you don't get any credit for that, I've still got plenty in reserve. So I'll let Chris deal with the contact info.
Before we do that, as we wrap up, any last words you'd like to share, Manuel?
I'm very pleased to belong to, to put God in my heart at the beginning, and with Naomi Ministry now, I feel really proud of God working by my hand with my friends as angels on earth. I know God is using them, and I really love to be part of this dream that God give us the chance to share with people like Rosita and everybody else.
Thank you. You want to close us out, Chris, with how people can get a hold of you and also donate to the ministry?
Sure. We love it when, if people are on Facebook, not everybody is, a lot of my friends here are not, but if you can go to, you can even just Google it. If you're not on Facebook, just Google Guatemala Naomi with an I, Naomi Ministry, all one word. It'll come up on Google or whatever your search engine is, and you can check that out. Like it if you're on Facebook. Another thing is we're pretty much one trick ponies, where none of us are real savvy at this kind of stuff. If we can do it, anybody can do it. So a friend of mine helped me put together a blog. It was a big struggle for me, and it was such a struggle. I only put about 8 or 10 short stories, some of which one of them at least is about Rosita that Mark related to me, and pictures. So it's a blog, and the name of it is, www.Guatemala Naomi Ministry .blog/blog. You click on that, it goes right to it. You can see the short stories. You can click on them, and it's a wide variety, sort of a shotgun of volunteer experience. Naomi experienced some stories and some needs, and what it's like to live on the railroad track community, a gang red zone in Guatemala. That explains that. Several of the Naomis live around that area. So that's probably the easiest way to, we don't have a donate button yet. I guess we maybe should, if we were getting that. So Mark and Sandy and their friends have a way of getting funds to Manuel through his bank in Guatemala. It's the safest way and least cost. I was doing that through Wells Fargo, which I didn't have an account with, but I opened an account just for that. Costs $4 to transfer funds down to Manuel's bank, where he has an account just for what we do. But also, one of the things that God has orchestrated, we run into other like-minded nonprofits, and a real nonprofit. We're just a bunch of people that get together. We don't have a board of directors, don't want one. We don't want Coca-Cola donating tens of thousands of dollars. That we don't want that. So, but we've run into some like-minded groups, which I won't explain all, but one of them became good friends of mine, who lives in outside of Baltimore, also in Maryland. And she and her husband were going to Guatemala for decades before Mark and I were to do volunteer work. She started a real nonprofit, has a big fundraiser plant sale every year, and has a Facebook page with a big donate button. So it's real easy. So from now on, I just donate to her Facebook page, and then she transfers it down to Manuel, and she takes care of that $4 because she says, this is part of our ministry, our mission to help other people. So that's just one example of groups and individuals we've run into in the US that we can partner with, and we help them out, they help us out, and it's just wonderful.
Great. Well, thank you for your heart, Mark. Thank you for your heart, Manuel. Thank you for your heart, Chris. Rosita, I think, just amazing just to persevere with all the challenges and raising just some awesome daughters. And Mark, I mean, wow, to be able to be the father in that sense, that both when one of them graduated, the first in her clan, again, you're not trying to as you said, change the whole situation as far as poverty, but to impact people on a heart level, which I actually think that is actually how it gets done, So I think you definitely have given me a lot of food for thought and some great takeaways. So definitely, let's have a great rest of the evening. Definitely stay healthy, be safe, Mark. And
Why should I start now?
because of your wife, and your 13-year-old. But yeah, please also translate this for Rosita so she can also hear and understand just you guys' heart a little bit more. And we'll definitely hopefully catch up in some time and kind of go from there. Thanks so much for your time, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
You.